AITA. Am I the a-hole for walking out of a job interview? I got offered an interview for a job I had my eye on for quite some time. I was scheduled to meet with 3 people within the actual office itself, and considering this was a job that could be done remotely, that raised my suspicion, but I still decided to learn more about the position. When I got there, the first interviewer, who was with HR, took almost 20 minutes to call me in. The receptionist was nice and all, and kept trying to reach out to them to see what was taking so long, but nonetheless that irked me the wrong way. My interviewer eventually walked into the lobby and told me to follow him, no apology for the long wait. To describe him, he was a tiny guy, about 5'6", and spoke in that weird Valley Girl accent, important later. The actual interview went off the rails really quick. My interviewer was rude to me and cut me off a lot. For background, I live with my parents because they have health issues and I help take care of them, so moving out isn't an easy option for me or them. When the interviewer asked where I lived, I told him I lived with my parents in X town. He laughed and asked if I was too scared to move out. I was still trying to be professional, but he kept making snide remarks about some of my experience, the state school I went to, etc. I eventually got fed up and I felt like I wasn't going to get the job anyway, so I decided to tell him, "You're being really unprofessional, so we're done here." He got mad and said, "So you don't want to meet the team you're interviewing with?" I told him no, if HR is this unprofessional then I can't imagine what everyone else here is like. As I was leaving through the lobby, the HR guy followed me and tried to embarrass me by saying out loud to the receptionist, "He is no longer welcomed here, if he tries to come back in call the police." I told him to shove it, and go make out with his boyfriend so that way no one has to hear his voice, then I left. I had never walked out of an interview in my life, no matter how well or bad they went. I did kind of feel bad for skipping out on the other 2 interviews, which would have been with some of the managers on the team I would be working with, but I absolutely hate most HR departments as it is since they produce some of the most toxic people, and if this HR guy was really unprofessional, I question the company as a whole. ESH. Everybody sucks here. This whole thing is just 2 a-holes butting heads. You were perfectly within your right to leave because he was being unprofessional. But did you really need to stoop so low with the final comment you made? ESH. The HR guy is an a-hole for being insulting and rude, and you are also an a-hole for being homophobic. You were right to walk out, but from what I see in the comments, you keep defending your homophobia, which reverses any sympathy I might have had. You are clearly just as judgmental of the way this guy talks as he is of you living with your parents. Assuming someone's sexuality from their voice/looks and then using that assumption to attack them is a whole move. I told him to shove it and go make out with his boyfriend. YTA. You're the a-hole just for this. It's fine to walk out of interviews. It's fine to let them know why you're walking out of the interview. It's not okay to insinuate someone's gay as an insult. It's 2020, don't be homophobic. Also, your main complaint is that he was so unprofessional, but insulting him is also incredibly unprofessional. If you're going to say you value professionalism, then act like it. You lost any chance you had of being taken seriously, because instead of good candidate giving feedback about why they turned down the job is now just petty spat with a rude homophobic candidate. ESH. Everybody sucks here. I was totally cheering for you until you decided to throw in a homophobic dig. You were perfectly justified until you went low. I also think OP was acting incredibly entitled, not just when they complained about having to wait 20 minutes, really didn't sound like OP had anything better to do, but also when the comment is made about how the interview could have taken place remotely. As far as I can tell, if it isn't far away, it's pretty typical to conduct the interview in person. Totally understand if OP or his parents are immunocompromised, but based off of all the irrelevant details he chose to include, you'd think they would have included this in the post were it actually the case. So they honestly sound like a lazy a-hole, LAH, to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if OP over-exaggerated or misconstrued the interviewer's comments as condescending due to OP's own insecurities. Sure, it's just as likely the interviewer was being condescending, but OP just shot themselves in the foot with the homophobic comments. Edit. OP also needs someone to check their privilege. The post was absolutely ignorant to the fact that most people do not have the luxury of pissing all over a job opportunity in the way OP did. ESH. Everybody sucks here. Out of curiosity, what on earth does his height have to do with anything? YTA. You're the a-hole for being homophobic. I also imagine much of the story is over-exaggerated, and you just don't like him because he's feminine and you're homophobic. Short men with valley girl accents aren't necessarily gay anyway. Ugh. You were without a doubt NTA up until the final insult. Don't stoop to someone else's level. And especially don't insult someone based on a stereotype and/or their sexual preferences. That's always unnecessary and will always make you an a-hole. So it has to be ESH. Everybody sucks here. ESH. You're both a-holes, now go make out with each other. YTA. You're the a-hole. Just because the interviewer was unprofessional, it doesn't mean you get a pass. Why in the name of God did you tell a prospective employer that you live with your parents? It shouldn't be stigmatized, but it is. You were unprofessional for divulging that private information, and it was downhill from there. You were both pretty shitty about the whole thing. ESH. NTA. Not the a-hole for leaving an interview that was unprofessional. I get that. However, you're the a-hole for your comment when you told him to go make out with his boyfriend so that way no one has to hear his voice. I seems like you may have assumed his sexuality from how he spoke, and you said it in a derogatory way. This was perhaps not your finest moment? That is, unless he mentioned a boyfriend to you during the interview, then disregard the YTA. Ahahahaha, you're kidding, right? I hope you're kidding. If not, then you're gonna have to get real good at living in the woods, or hope that your family is generous and tolerant enough to support you, because this kind of attitude isn't going to fly in the working world. YTA. You're the a-hole so hard it's actually funny. So his accent was only relevant because of the homophobic comment you were going to make at the end? I see, I see. ESH. You are just as much of an ass for making homophobic comments as he is for being rude during the interview. Your behavior is not a good look, and when he talks to his peers in the HR community, he won't tell people he was a jerk, but your homophobic comments will be very detrimental to your future if it gets around. It's funny how people justify homophobia, transphobia, or racism just because the other person was rude. It's never justified. I'm always wary of people who do that, because why is it that being racist/homophobic is always the first thing that always comes to mind? Employment interviews should rarely be ended early. Yet in exceptional cases where the interviewer is being abusive, the thing to do is first offer the interviewer a face-saving option to walk back their mistakes, such as telling them you've got to be kidding. Then if they continue to cross the line, thank them for their time and leave with as little ado as possible. It's in your best interests to make your move swiftly, so the interviewer is too surprised to react until after you've left the lobby. Keep a professional demeanor as you depart. You were in their house, which gives the interviewer the advantage. You telegraphed your intentions, which gave him an opportunity to react. So he baited you in an attempt to save face among his co-workers. Then you played into his hands by using a homophobic slur in front of witnesses. You hurt no one but yourself. You also made that guy look like a champ for having weeded you out quickly. ESH.